I'm meeting with Horst Seferens, who you see in front of you. Horst, can you tell us your job description here at the Sachenhausen concentration camp?
Well, I'm responsible for the public relations of the Brandenburg Memorials Foundation, and Sachsenhausen is only one of the memorials belonging to our foundation, the largest and with most visitors.
We've had a chance to have a great conversation today with you, which I am eternally grateful. Just in like 30 seconds, can you tell us briefly the function of Sachsenhausen and why it's significant in the history of Nazi Germany?
Well, the Sachsenhausen concentration camp was the first one which was designed by an SS architect on a white sheet of paper, the first concentration camp which was built up from all the beginning, and it was intended to be a model for all the following concentration camps. It is close to the Reichscapital of Berlin and also the central administration for all concentration camps. The Inspectorate of Concentration Camps was located here in Oranienburg, close to the concentration camp. And so Sachsenhausen indeed was the center of the whole system of concentration camps.
Would you say that when does the camp actually start functioning, and who did it contain?
Well, the concentration camp was opened in summer 1936. At the same time, the Olympic Games were taking place in Berlin. And first, primarily political prisoners were sent to Sachsenhausen, and also criminals. And in the beginning in 1938, also so-called antisocials, homosexuals, and in a large number after the Reichskristallnacht, Jewish people were sent to Sachsenhausen. The population inside the concentration camps changed completely after the war started, because tens of thousands of prisoners, tens of thousands of people, resistance fighters from the occupied countries, especially from Poland and from later Russia, were sent to Sachsenhausen, but also from Western European, North European countries were sent here to Sachsenhausen, so that at the end, in 1945, more than 90% of the prisoners were non-Germans. And of course, also Jewish people were sent to Sachsenhausen. About 20% of the 200,000 prisoners who were in Sachsenhausen were Jewish.
If there are people who question whether the community of Oranienburg knew what was going on, what would you say to the audience to clarify that everyone knew? What would be one example?
Well, it's always the question, what did you want to know? And there is a wide range of attitudes that people had towards the camp, which was immediately neighbored to their town. We know about a Protestant preacher who was part of the confessing church, was a very courageous man who made it to get into the concentration camp to meet Martin Niemöller and to talk to him, and who told a lot after the war about what he saw of the concentration camp, about the arriving Soviet prisoners of war, for example, who were killed here. But of course, many people didn't look at what they were able to see and looked away.
There's one story that you told that is truly chilling to me about how they killed 12,000 Soviet war prisoners of war. Can you briefly tell us, just describe how they took, before Zyklon B, before all these mass murdering technologies, how did they dispose with 12,000 prisoners of war?
Yeah, well, after the invasion of the Soviet Union started, the Wehrmacht and the SS agreed together to kill so-called political officers, members of the Communist Party, especially also Jewish prisoners of war from Russia. And they decided to kill them in the concentration camps. And here in Oranienburg, at the Inspectorate of Concentration Camps, there were 2 conferences where they discussed how to do that, because at that time, gas chambers or other methods for mass murder did not exist inside the concentration camps. And here in Oranienburg, they developed an automatical installation for shooting people. The victims were made to think that there was a medical examination, and they were sent into a doctor's room, and with a measure, there was a measure on the wall for measuring the length of their bodies, where they had to stand, and in the neighboring room were 2 SS men with a gun, and there was an opening inside the wall where the measure was, so that they were able to shoot the victims into the back of their head. And so within a few weeks, more than 10,000 Soviet prisoners of war were killed here in Sachenhausen.
Horst, you do this professionally, you educate people, you speak on behalf of this museum staff, this programming. Talk to America, our people. Where is Germany today with its coming to grips with its memory? In your opinion, have they really accepted the responsibility, the culpability of what they did as a nation?
Well, I think it was a difficult and long way in East and in West Germany, and also in the Germany after the reunification, to deal with the Nazi past. And today, I think it's a part of the German history which is part of the narrative about German history, and it is accepted to talk about it. And the memorial sites, the many memorial sites which do exist, think of the Holocaust Memorial in the center of Berlin, are part of modern Germany. The discussions of the especially 70s and 80s of the foreign century, where it was difficult and controversial to talk about the Nazi period and to how to deal with it today, they came to an end. Today there is not much controversial discussion about the Nazi period, and that it is part of the narrative of German history today. This is a success, of course, of the long and difficult discussion about this terrible past, but it's also a problem because the Nazi history is something extremely something extremely irritating. And the more it becomes an accepted part in the narrative of German history, this irritation, we are in a danger to lose this irritation. And I think especially this irritation is important for us today, that we are aware that all modern democracies have the opportunity to change, that what happened in Germany in 1933 and afterwards can happen again. Not the same way, not exactly repeating what happened then, but I think all modern democracies, all modern societies have inside themselves the danger to change, and that this change can work very fast and immediately. We have seen in Germany. And so I think this irritation, which I talked about before, is important when we are talking about the Nazi history and the Holocaust, to make us aware that we have to be carefully and sensible with our own political systems and societies today. And so this acceptance of the Nazi history in the narrative of Germany is a success, but also a danger.
One last question. How do you think that you, Horst, are making a difference in the job that you do? How do you make a difference in the kind of creating the kind of democracy in the world that you want? How do you in your job make a difference to do that?
I'm sorry, but I didn't get the question. What difference do you mean?
How do you see your role and your job in helping people cope with history?
Well, I think our primary role and task is to be places for teaching history, places of education and learning about history, to make people now and in the future sensible for their own political situation. It's difficult and a problem if you always compare history, Nazi history, Holocaust, with developments, things in our time. It's always difficult to parallel them. But I think history and the knowledge about history and the knowledge how it was possible to establish a dictatorship like the Nazi regime in a very short time, to create concentration camps, to exaggerate a war over all Europe and all the world, to know how that worked and who the people were who did that and what was their motivation, makes us sensible for our contemporary developments in our countries and in the world. And I think our task is to teach this history in order to make the people today more sensible for their own situation in their countries and in the world.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.